Welcome, one and all, to another episode of Pacific414 episode reviews. I'm your host, Mike. As a matter of fact, this is a live episode of Pacific414 episode reviews, something I haven't done in a while since the latest ones I've been doing. I've been recording them, then posting them after the fact. I do want to say that this live episode review will contain some spoilers. I may not go over every single detail of the episode. I might just touch on just a few key points of the episode, only so I don't spoil the entire episode for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But speaking of having not seen it yet, if you haven't, even though I'm not going to be giving away too many spoilers from this episode, if you haven't seen the episode, skip this review, watch the episode, and then come back. And I do want to say that if you have a different viewpoint on this episode, that's perfectly fine. Leave it down in the comments below. So, on to the review of Bounty Lost, the 9th episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch, which picks back up where Reunion left off, with Crosshairs chasing off Clone Force 99 from Braca. He's in hot pursuit on his fighter, his troop transport, and of course the Marauder is taking hit after hit. Wrecker at one point says it's getting hot back here because of all the hits they're taking, and their deflector shields are going down. Of course, one of their priorities is to find Cad Bane and rescue Omega. And of course, Hunter is a little hesitant to leave right away. I'm sure it's because he blames himself for letting Cad Bane get away with Omega after getting shot and knocked out. But after a while, after much of the crew, meaning Wrecker, Tech, and Echo, say we've got to go now. Much at the behest of Hunter, they do eventually make the jump to hyperspace, where we get a shot of Crosshairs in his shuttle, and he's all bandaged up like he was in the last episode, and he's none too pleased about his brothers, Clone Force 99, escaping his clutches. So, the next thing we see is we're on Cad Bane's ship. Omega's in a holding cell. Toto's there, keeping an eye on the holding cell. There's a conversation between Toto and Omega when Omega comes through. Omega wants to know where her comm device is. And of course, Toto's not going to give it up where it is. Toto is working on his leg that was shot off by Hunter in Reunion. Of course, Omega offers to help him. Toto refuses at first. Omega says, "What am I going to do? I'm here on this ship. I can't get away. Besides, I'm just a kid." So Toto, like a fool, decides to let Omega out of the holding cell to work on his leg. And in the process of working on his leg and making small talk, she manages to reattach his leg, recalibrate his systems, and then she shuts him down. Meanwhile, Cad Bane is on the flight deck of his ship. He's talking to Lama Su, and Lama Su is asking if he has the asset, if he has Omega. Because what we come to learn from Clone Force 99 in this episode, and like I said, I'm going to be skipping points, I'm going to be going back to points, so if this isn't your style of review, well, maybe if you watch enough of these, you'll grow to like my style. Maybe you won't, I don't know. But Clone Force 99 at one point, and this is mainly with Tech, as they're trying to find out who took Omega and where they might be headed, Tech comes and mentions Jango Fett, and also mentions Boba Fett, saying that at one time Boba Fett was the only pure sample of Jango Fett's DNA that was used for all the clones. Of course, we know that Boba Fett disappeared and went on his own journey that was covered in the Clone Wars. And the whole entire part of this episode was pretty much to give us disposition about why Omega's so important, because she's the last remaining pure sample of Jango Fett's DNA. That's why the Kaminoans hold her in such high value. That's why they want to use her for the next step in the cloning process to continue the contract with the former Republic, now Empire. So, Cad Bane, like I said, he is on his ship. They're headed to this planet called Boravio, which is a former facility run by the Kaminoans, because Lama Su has agreed to send Tunway, one of the Kaminoans, to Boravio to retrieve Omega and to give him the credits that he seeks. Well, upon arrival to Boravio, when Cad Bane's ship lands, Cad Bane is taking Omega into the facility at the rendezvous point. Omega manages to get away when a certain bounty hunter who we've seen earlier in the season, who we first met in The Mandalorian, shows up. Fennec Shand makes an appearance in this episode. She and Cad Bane duke it out. You know, they have their own little firefight. One-upmanship. You know, there's a part of the episode in this facility. There's a scene actually where Cad Bane is blown away, or I should say blown back, by a thermal detonator that was set by Fennec Shand. And Omega makes her way into an abandoned scientific facility on this scientific facility. I know. And that's an oxymoron. I realize it. She's on this abandoned facility, but what she uncovers is this abandoned laboratory that has clone samples inside a test tube. And the species, I don't know if it's ever been mentioned what the species is. I didn't even really know if it was a Kaminoan. Not really sure. It looks like your typical alien, you know, think Area 51, you know, Roswell, New Mexico type of alien. So she sees that, she activates a few of the systems, and this is after she's gotten away from Cad Bane, and she tries to raise the Marauder and Clone Force 99, which she is able to do, but they advise her through text knowledge to find a way to boost the signal so they can locate where she is. So she ran into this facility when she saw that there was this door open. She activates this panel, which causes everything else to turn back on. Fennec Shand catches up to her, and what ends up happening is Omega presses a few buttons, causing this test tube to fall on Fennec Shand, crashing, and the body inside falling out. Of course, the body never reached its pure maturation process, so it's dead, but it's all on Fennec Shand with all its plasma and goo from being inside the test tube for so long. Omega runs out of the laboratory. She gets to the end of a balcony, looks over, and sees an escape pod, a flying pod, a flight pod, in other words. And she goes to make her escape down there to flight pod. She's intercepted by Toto 360, and she has her little scuffle with Toto's 360, actually climbs on top of Toto 360, and they go for a short distance flight where they both crash, and Omega gets up, gets into the flight pod, manages to activate the flight pod for it to launch. Cad Bane and Fennec Shand are still fighting each other, and Cad Bane is informed by Toto 360 that the asset Omega is getting away in the flight pod. So Cad Bane is going to get into pursuit of Omega on the flight pod, but it is once again intercepted by Fennec Shand. He does eventually make it back to his ship after the tussle between him and Fennec Shand, where he's tied up and he has to use the rockets in his boots to float back up onto the platform, the balcony. And by that time, Omega's flight pod is getting ready to crash because it's losing power. But of course, our heroes, Clone Force 99, manage to save the day, come to her rescue, and Clone Force 99 and Omega are reunited. Hunter decides after Echo says, "You need to tell her about this information that we've learned." He decides to tell her that she is valuable to the Kaminoans for their clone project. Lama Singh is one responsible for sending Cad Bane after her, but Nala Singh actually was the one who hired Fennec Shand. So you have two forces working against each other. Nala Singh just wants Omega back so they can continue to work on the program. But Lama Singh wants Omega destroyed once they get the necessary cloning material that they need to continue the project. So what did I think of this episode? It was an alright episode. It was an alright episode again, and had some similarities with The Mandalorian as far as having bounty hunters chasing after a child, kidnapping a child, and our band of heroes coming to her rescue. Now, unlike in The Mandalorian, where, Mando and his team were able to get on to Moff Gideon's Imperial Star Cruiser, we find out that Sid knows a little bit about Cad Bane, but she doesn't know how to locate him. And of course, due to the Republic records of Cad Bane and the numerous run-ins with Cad Bane by the Jedi, there is plenty of information to be looked at when it comes to Cad Bane. And of course, just like in The Mandalorian, it's a hot pursuit to get to the exact location to where the asset, in this case Omega, is being held captive for an exchange that never occurs due to Tung Wei being killed. So with those similarities, Fennec Shand being involved, but even though in The Mandalorian Fennec Shand helped rescue Baby Yoda, remember in season 1 of The Mandalorian, Fennec Shand was going after Baby Yoda because she made a name for herself. And even in this episode, we know that it's the beginning of Fennec Shand's career as a bounty hunter, and Cad Bane even says to her, "You're not up to this. This task is beyond you." Of course, Fennec Shand doesn't have any of it, and that's what starts the fight between her and Cad Bane. But, the thing is, there are still some similarities between what's going on right now in the Bad Batch and what went on in The Mandalorian Season 2. But all those similarities aside, again, this wasn't a bad episode. It was once again great to see Cad Bane do what he does, and especially being voiced by Corey Burton. And of course, even though I didn't mention him by name in the last episode, I just called him his droid. Toto 360, Seth Green. You all know who Seth Green is. Robot Chicken, Family Guy, and several other movies. Austin Powers and The Italian Job come to mind. So, you had them. voicing their characters. But, all in all, this, again, wasn't a bad episode. Not going to say it was terrible. Not going to say it was great. It wasn't bad. It really wasn't a bad episode. It's just that I really wish there weren't some close some close comparisons to what had already happened in season 2 of The Mandalorian. That's all I'm saying. There are some similarities in my view, where we had a band of 4 heroes who were in pursuit of an asset and they had to go rescue them. Now, granted, in The Mandalorian, it was actually 5 when you count Cara Dune, Fennec Shand, and of course Bo-Katan and Kreese. But again, there are some similarities, and that for me does kind of take away from the fact that you've already told this story in live action. And I really don't understand the reasoning for going for the same storyline. Why can't they just have Omega and the Bad Batch explore the unknown parts of the galaxy and find out what hasn't been told yet in the Star Wars universe? I really don't know. I'm not sure what the reasoning is, and I probably will never understand why they're going about it the way they are. And I may not even agree with the way they're going about with the storyline. 9 episodes in, we know that Omega is Grogu, and Hunter of all of them is pretty much Mando, Din Djarin. And I know I've said that before in previous reviews. Of course, I'll probably end up repeating myself more and more as this series goes on. I'm not really sure how many more episodes we have. I don't know if it's, you know, 4 more episodes, 3 more episodes. But so far, what we've seen, especially when it comes to the bounty hunters and Omega being the key to everything, we've seen that already with Grogu and the Mandalorian. So, my thoughts on this episode is it's not a bad episode, but again, it repeats what we've already seen. And that to me, if I were to rate this, that to me would give this episode a 3.5 stars out of 5. Mainly because we're repeating a lot of the same story threads that we've already seen. So that's going to be my review of The Bad Batch Episode 9, Bounty Lost. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please leave them in the comment section down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you don't like this video, please give it a thumbs down. Either way, it helps the algorithm. And if you like what you see here on the Pacific414 YouTube channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Social media links are going to be down in the description below. Thank you all very much for watching. Hope you all have a good rest of your Friday, a good weekend, and until then, I will see you all later on for episode number 228 of the box score. And if you missed episode 227 of the box score, please go back and look at it. It was a special night last night in Los Angeles for not only baseball, but also the Cubs organization as a whole. So until tomorrow, this has been Mike for Pacific414 episode reviews with my reaction review, my thoughts on Bounty Lost, the 9th episode of The Bad Batch. Thank you all. Have a good day.